Welcome to this Traders Helping Traders session. THT is a series of bonus materials presented by traders who trade the apexinvesting.com trading systems created by Daryl Martin. The purpose is to help you see how we as traders, just like you, apply these systems and tools provided by Apex every day in our own trading. Of course, the normal disclosures apply. Trading involves risk and is not suited for everyone. Please see apexinvesting.net for full disclaimers. And I want to remind everybody that this is not a substitute for watching the training videos. It's a bonus, and yes, it's being recorded. And today's session is being presented by Lori, that's me, and the topic is scalping with trend catchers, slings, elevators, and apex pattern E's. These are my bread and butter trades. They're how basically I make a living. I get a lot of questions on them, so today's webinar is to clear up some of those questions, and this is your opportunity to ask questions live. I will get every question answered that I possibly can, and I will, if we have enough time, I'll go over some of the iZone sharpshooter stuff. There is so much important stuff. I mean, I think I could take the whole day to cover a ton of things, but I want to keep it kind of short so we don't have really long webinars to go over and watch when they're being recorded, or when you're watching the recorded version. Okay, the first thing I want to look at is, what is a sling? People are really confused by what they even are. So let's bring this over. Okay, I did some of these screenshots in the room, and a sling is, if you have your trend catcher on, you will get a cyan arrow. Now on this template, my arrows weren't cyan, but I've since then changed my template. As you can see over here, they're now cyan. But you will have an arrow. It's basically indicating a possible reversal, but it doesn't reverse. And you got a long wick and an arrow. That's a sling. It's that simple. It's really not any big deal. There's no big secret. It's just you have a cyan arrow and you have a wick. And on this particular bar, you don't see a wick, and that's okay as long as you have the cyan arrow. That is your key. It has to be a cyan arrow, but it also has to close the same direction as the previous bar did. So with this right here, let's see, I can put a big old square up here. With this one, I'm going to move it so you can see it better, but will with this bar be a sling? Come on. It would not, because it did not close in the same direction as the bar before it. It had the arrow, but it had a sling has to close in the same direction as the bar before it. So this bar would not be a sling. It has the arrow, but does not close in the same direction. If you look at this bar right here, is this a sling? Can anybody answer that? Is it a sling? Yeah, Sean, you got that one right. It is a sling. You'll see it had a little wick here. So it came down. It was thinking about a reversal there, but it didn't make it. And we have the cyan arrow, and it closed in the same direction as the previous bar. So yes, it would be a sling. You can't see my cursor. Oh, that's not good. Can you use my arrow? Well, I can. I really can't get up there and get it. My point, it's not getting up there and getting it for me. So now can you see? Can you see anything? You can, okay. So with this one, can you see what I'm pointing at? Would this one be a sling? No, you're right. It would not be a sling because the bar before it was an up close bar, and this close is a down close. So there's an arrow, but it would not be a sling. Is it an elevator? Can anybody tell me if it's an elevator? Don't know what that is. Okay, well that's a good. An elevator is when it actually closes the wrong direction, but the next bar closes up again, or back in our original direction. In this case, up. So this would not be a basic elevator because the next bar closed back down again. So it would not be. We have an advanced elevator that, yeah, that would qualify for that, but we are not going to get into advanced. We're just going to keep it real simple. And the sling is your cyan arrow, and the bar closes in the same direction. An elevator is when you have a cyan arrow and the bar closes in the other direction, but then the next bar closes back up in the original direction. So that would be, here's an example. You're going up, oh, we had a sling here. We have a cyan arrow and a sling. It stayed the same close, the same color, if you will, as the previous bar, and the next bar was the same color, and then we had one that closed the opposite color. Then the bar after that, you can never get into the elevators until the next bar closes, because the next bar comes up and it closes the same direction and goes ahead and goes on. An elevator, 2 cyan arrows up. It's actually, the elevator is just one bar that closes in the other direction. So does anybody have any questions on what the basic slings and elevators are? I'm going to put this in a forum post with lots of examples. Doesn't matter which direction the cyan arrow is pointing. It will always point the opposite direction. So if, for example, your trend is going up, your cyan arrow will always be the opposite direction. It'll always be that way. You won't have an arrow like this. Arrow is the MVP arrow, so it is not. It doesn't give us a sling. MVP arrows don't matter on this particular thing, but the make that a little more clear here. And one other thing to note, when you are loading charts, the trend catcher potential, these all indicate a potential change in direction. And all our cyan arrows are a potential change. So when you see that, when you see the cyan arrow, it's potential change, but it didn't change direction. So the thing to remember when you load a chart, the potential arrows never load historically. I ran replay this morning to get all these arrows on here, but if you load a chart, you will not see any potential arrows, any cyans, unless they had the actual, unless you've got a green confirmation or a red confirmation with it. For example, the green arrow appears when the line is hit. Okay, here's your cyan arrow, and here's your line that if it hits that line, it's a confirmed trend catcher, for example. And that would stay in history, and it would plot. But just these single ones that don't get hit, this wick never hit the cyan bar, so it will not plot in history. So yes, I'm pointing with the crosshairs. I can't grab an arrow. I'm sorry. I'm just pointing with the crosshairs. So remember that when you're loading up a chart, you will not see, if you just want to look back and see how many of these would have profited or whatever, you won't see them unless you run replay. They have to be live. So I went back and plotted a few, ran replay for a few days so that we could see the arrows. And the slings, you only take the first one in any trend. You never take a sling after an elevator. You never take a sling after a sling. Only the first one. let's go back here. I started this about, well, okay, 9:30-ish, open. Okay, so let's just go down, and here is a possible sling. Up, yeah. So you go in, and your entry is always 1 to 3 ticks below the low of, well, for example, if you're going down, it's below the low of this bar. So this bar is at 1158.2, so you would go in at 1158.1, 0.0, or 0.9, whichever. 0.9 is very conservative, and it's probably better. I know Daryl always goes 3, he's always 3 ticks above or below any high or low. And if you go 3 ticks, that would have kept you out of this that just went down a little bit and it went up. But so that's kind of up to you. Is Trend Catcher a template, or can elite members get my template? Yes, I will. I put my template in the room yesterday, and since then I've changed it. I went ahead and changed the arrows back to cyan because my arrows were a different color. And so I can put the template in the elite room again. So it does look different because I did put the cyan. I didn't like the lines showing. I just like them clean. And so I changed these arrows to clear so that all my lines wouldn't show either, because it just kind of gets messy for me. I'm not a real big fan of a lot of clutter. But when you're looking for cyan arrows, when you're looking for the arrows, I think it's a lot easier to see the cyans. So I went ahead and changed that color, which brings these lines on also. So yeah, I can put that back in the elite room. But if we were going at, let's see, where were we? Right here. You're going down, so your entry would be approximately, it's 1158.1 is the low of this bar. So you would put it in 1158. You would have got probably in at 1158 with 1 tick, and at 1157.8. Let's see. Let me make sure I got the right. The low is 1158.2. Okay, so the best entry would be 1158, 1157.9. If we put our entry there, it's hard to tell. I don't think we'd have been picked up. Oops. Let's see. Oh, come on. Okay, we'll just do it manually. Okay, if you're looking at futures, for example, you would have to be, it wouldn't pick you up if it hit exactly. It has to go a tick below. So you wouldn't have been picked up if you went 3 ticks below. That's your safest, best bet. What is the ideal take profit, tick goal for the slingshots and elevators? It depends on your market, and it depends on if you've got a ranging day, I take less profit. If you have a day that's kind of, it may be bouncing, for example, between settlement and your half deviation. And if it's bouncing and ranging, then I would tend to subtract a few ticks out of there and go down to it. For example, here you're going down to the bottom, almost hits the bottom of a green buy zone. Well, it's bouncing off that, and the volume's low, so chances are it's going to go up. That's a whole different system, and I don't really want to get too confused here. It's easy to do. But my take profit, I most often do a KDT, which everybody asks, what's a KDT? One of the traders named it a Kansas double tap because I do it all the time. And what it is, it's just 2 different contracts with separate, different take profits. I put one in at 5 ticks and one in at 10 ticks. The 5 ticks almost always hits, and that way, if the 10 tick doesn't hit, it offsets the loss. And if they both hit, I've just made $150, which is the norm. And Let's see, can I repeat when I never take a sling or an elevator? Okay, you always take only the first one in the trend. So let me give you another example here. We're going down now. Okay, here's the first one in the trend. This is a valid one. And so you could take this and it would be really close here as far as what, well, let's see, from 5.8 to 5. It would give you 5 ticks. And what I do is once I hit my 5 tick, I pull my take profit or my stop loss down. So if it doesn't, if you have one that's just a little tiny one, it doesn't knock you out. You would have kind of thought maybe it would go down to the half deviation, but it didn't in this case. So a lot of times you can get 15 ticks, not 10. I mean, it just kind of depends on the market. And I don't know. I trade TF. That's why I'm using TF for an example, because I know TF. TF acts and reacts a lot like CL does. And so you can pretty much apply most of what Marilyn tells us in her commentaries and the things she teaches us, you can apply to TF. And so I like it. This system can be used with spreads. It can also be used with binaries. If you're doing a spread, you take a near the money spread, and there are forum posts to tell you how to choose your spread. And Daryl's new iZone sharpshooter, we call it the IZSS. He's got a series of webinars, and I would recommend to watch every one in order. If you're doing spreads, don't miss anything, and don't take them out of order. Watch them all, and it's about 4 hours total. You don't have to watch them all at the same time, but it is about 4 hours total, and you will really have spreads down really well to do scalping with spreads. And you'd apply the same technique to doing this with spreads. And if you're doing binaries with these, you would want to take an at the money. You would want to go in at least have 20 minutes, close to 20 minutes, and to an hour, with an expiration 20 minutes to an hour. And you would want to go at the money, say $40 to $45 risk. Sell it back. If you're buying, buy it at 40-ish, sell it back at 65-ish, $25, take profit, and get the heck out of Dodge. Take your profit and run. And it worked very well. I did that for quite a long time before I did futures. I did it with the E's mainly because we didn't have slings and elevators at that time, but they all do work. With the spread, you just got to be aware depending on how near the money it is. Yes, you have to, and that's where NQ works very well with spreads. And I don't trade and I don't know the NQ market real well, so I'm not going to give any examples of that today, but it works very well with spreads. And we've got a lot of people in the room that trade NQ with spreads. So, I mean, if you're getting in the room, it is fabulous for questions, and we've got a lot of activity in there with people calling what they see for setups. So I mean, this works great with anything, really. It works great with futures, Forex, spreads, binaries, and it's just a scalp. You don't want to stay in. If you're doing binaries with this, you definitely want to use, say you're doing a 20-minute binary, I would use continuum bars instead of the shadow, because the continuum at 20 minutes, it's going to force a new bar. So that's something that John's going to go over, or Daryl, whoever does the Thursday webinar. It's not real clear, but when you do for example, you're doing 5-minute binaries, you want to use continuum bars that add that element of time, because every 5 minutes it will start a new bar no matter what. So you always are starting one at the beginning of the 5 minutes or 20 minutes or whatever it is. I would not trade binaries without using those continuum bars ever again, now that I realize how those work. And I know that's probably kind of confusing, but it will force a new bar. If you have 5 for your time in a continuum bar. It will force a new bar every 5 minutes or 20 minutes or whatever your expiration is. Use that and use that for your time in your continuum bars. That's a huge advantage for binaries. And I mean, that's, you can't get better than that. Okay, so I want to kind of look over just a few more. I've got a couple of these as an example that I marked out kind of. Oh, these are some that I marked up the other day. I guess on the, whatever day it is. And I like to take the Apex E's also. And this is what I made a lot of money on those in the Apex, in binaries. They're great. 3 ticks above the close of the E, that's the entry. You go in, and in this case, I can't see if this would have been a sling because I didn't have the, oh, did I? Yeah, I guess I did have them in. Okay, so that would not have been a sling because there was no arrow on it. That's an MVP arrow. That's not, this is why I changed them to cyan in my template, because they're hard to tell what it is. So now I've got them cyan so you can see them really easy. But this was not a sling, but this was an E entry. You can see the green E. So 3 ticks above the E, I'm going in for 5 or 10 ticks, and the little blue dots shows where I took profit. So let's kind of go back. I don't want to skip around too much. There was a E entry. It's really hard to see, but there's an E right there. And so you go in 3 ticks above the E. You would take, I take 15 ticks, or 10 ticks. I'm sorry, I take 10 ticks and 5 ticks. I did a KDT in this one. So you go to the top, bang, that's where I hit my take profit. And this was actually, it turned into an elevator. So it went down, 1 bar was the wrong color, 1 bar comes back up. So your entry is 1 to 3 ticks above the high of that elevator bar. So there we go. That's, I go 1 tick in as I control my, take my stop. Took a KDT up 10 ticks. This is where, or did I go up to the green ice? Looks like maybe it was the same. Anyway, that's where I took profit, right there. And then waited and waited. There was no arrows here, so these were not valid slings. So we waited and we had a reversal. We had another E, 3 ticks above the E. We have an entry. And this time I thought, well, you know, we hit the green ice. I'm going to go ahead and put my take profit up at the green ice. And at that point, I am going to trail it. Once I get past my 10, 15 ticks, I'm going to pull my stops up so that I don't turn trying to go for more into a losing trade. And in that case, once I had the 10 ticks, I pulled the stop up so that I didn't lose any, and it took me right up to the green ice, got out, and I made 20 ticks on that one. And then you're going down, you've got no entries, and you've got nothing, and then it reversed, and we had another green E. So I got in here, and this was not a valid elevator because it did not have an arrow. So it was an E though. So we went in and it got me out here. Luckily, this would have been hard to sit through because it put in an elevator. Where is the E? The E is right there. You can't really see it real well because of my coloring on here, and I apologize for that. Do you know what's behind the formation of a sling or arrow? Is it adjustable or is it set within the strategy? It is, I'm not on mute. I haven't changed anything, but it is, I don't know what goes into the formation of it. I can just see them. I mean, I know, when you get an arrow, just take it. And I don't know exactly. You can't hear me well anymore. Okay, let me try to switch my Okay, does that help? Okay. I don't know what the deal is with that, but definitely need to get a new mic. Okay, so we're going along. We have an elevator here. So the entry is at least a tick above the high of that elevator bar. So got in, went for 10 ticks, and I was really cautious right here at the green ice. It may bounce right off that green ice and go down. So, you know, there I'm really going to bring my stops up and be close. I think I have a broken wire on my mic too. Okay, so here we actually have a sling, but it's not valid. Why is it not valid? Why would I not take that sling? Because we had down here, wait a minute, that is the first sling. My apologies. I was thinking that this, well, this is technically an elevator in this same trend. So no, this would not be a valid sling because this is all the same trend. You only had one bar going the wrong direction. That makes that an elevator. You never ever take a sling after an elevator. You can take one elevator after the first sling, but you never take a sling after an elevator. Just making sure I understand KDT. Do you have one order with 2 contracts or 2 separate orders with 5 and 10 tick goals? I have 2 separate orders with 5 and 10 tick goals for the KDT. It just kind of helps any loss in case you get one, because I put a 20 tick stop on that, and if you hit 2 of them with the 20 tick stop, that hurts. So it doesn't happen very often, but I want one to protect me because the 5 tick almost always takes profit. So this is just pointing out slings in here. I was just trying to point out different ones. Okay, this sling here would actually be, and you really can't, okay, this is the sling, because this is your arrow. So it's a tick to 3 ticks. I go in 1 tick below, but the really conservative method would be 3 ticks below. And I had set my take profit, and it was barely hit it, but it did hit. And when I get down to where I'm at 10 ticks, especially here, you're at the bottom. Well, that's a new I zone that's being created, so that's a new stop there. But I pull my stops up when it's getting down to 10. I pull them up to 5, so I at least have a sling, a somewhat of a profit. A sling or elevators will pull back in a trend or a failed attempt at a reversal. It gives a visual clue where to re-enter the trend for a quick scalp. Exactly, Aaron. Good way to put that. That's exactly what it is. They're a pullback. And, you know, the first pullback is the strongest. It's the beginning of the trend. If you have a lot of volume, that's even better. But I don't even look at volume much. I just go with it. And here we had a valid E. And then, so 3 ticks above the E, it actually puts us above this. This is a 1 deviation here. And it actually, so I wanted it to go past that deviation, which happened to work out there. But if it was going to bounce off that deviation and go down, I really didn't want to be caught in that. And I really kept my take profit close here because it's going to oscillate probably when you hit the deviation. So I'm really careful with that. But it went ahead and took my 10 tick profit, and it probably would have got the 15. I know Marilyn always goes for 15 on hers. She reads the market better than I do. She's got an overall big picture better. I just go for complete no-brainers. And that's why I just do my KDT. I get 150 bucks out of every one, just about. But a 10 ticks, I know I'm going to get it. And what I'm working on is combining this with the IZSS, the I-zone sharpshooter, is I've got another chart up, and I haven't got it coordinated yet, but I want to see, instead of taking this quick scalp, there are times when it will trend, and I want to be in on that trend. So if once I get in, I might check the I-zone and see if everything is going the same way, and if it is, then I might go ahead and trend it. And that's just a little bit more involved, and I want to touch on that just a little bit. If you're really coordinated, that's a really good thing to do so that you can get the trends. The iZone Sharpshooter is the best no-brainer trending things that you're going to run across. They are awesome. And to combine the two is great, but it's not a good idea to combine them on one chart because the IZSS works really good with the 8-10-5 continuums, and their slings show up on there, but they're going to show up different. So if I'm doing slings and elevators and I'm using those for my entries, I am going to use this type of chart, just a plain shadow bars that are emulating a 12 tick. For me, they work the best. But if you're doing the iZone Sharpshooter and you see a elevator or a sling, it should give you confidence to stay in, but I wouldn't take an elevator or sling just based off that chart. Okay, let me catch up on a few questions here. How do you treat slings that are close to deviation levels, iZones, etc.? I've seen them break them with no problem, but when they don't work, it tends to use those levels as a reason why it didn't work. Exactly. What I do when I'm near a level, I don't like to take them into a level. Like I was really happy to be out of this particular one. I mean, a lot of times it'll oscillate a little bit, so I'm gonna pull my stop up really close. If I was in a binary, for example, I would not probably take it right into an iZone because it could bounce and just go like crazy. I mean, down the wrong way. And in this case, I went ahead and put the take profit on the other side, assuming it was at least going to oscillate a little bit, and it did, which is, I mean, it zoomed right past it, which is kind of doesn't always do that. But I'm going to keep my stop in check. IZSS is 8 and 10. What are yours for trend catcher? I use the 519 shadow bars for trend catcher. For the there is a whole forum post and lots of videos on trend catcher, and that's basically what I use. I mean, these are just trend catcher potential trend changes, and they didn't work, so I'm just scalping them. And I like Apex Pattern Ease. That is the ultimate go-to, if you ask me. I love Apex Ease. They work in everything. I mean, they're great. And in this day, we had a lot of them, which was really awesome. I love those days because I have seen you can almost always at least get a scalp off an E, if not take those E's and trend it a little bit. I mean, I tend to trend the E's more than I'll trend anything else. And if the sling is near the beginning of the trend, I will tend to go for a little more than at the end. Like here, you had a nice trend already. I would tend not to go for a whole lot of profit here, just because it would make me a little hesitant. But then I would also want to check my IZSS chart and see, did everything flip? Well, by that time, I'm sure it probably did. Did everything flip, and do I want to go for a trend there? Are the E's colored for long or short? Yes, the E's are colored green are long. You can see the green, and then red for short. And in this one, and this is just a screenshot that I put in the room. Let me look. Yeah, see, there's a red E, and it's going short. So your entry for the apex pattern, your entry is always 3 ticks below. For binaries, it's like a profit popper. I used to do these all the time in 20-minute binaries, and when I had about an hour or 20 minutes, if I had around 20 minutes, I'd go ahead in the 20s. If it was like 10 minutes left, nah, I want more time than that, so I would go in an hour expiration. But for futures, Forex, these things work like a charm. So is there any questions? If you're late catching a sling, can you enter on the second bar after the sling, and how late can you enter? No. If you're late, don't chase it. Never, ever, ever chase a trade. If you miss it, you miss it. Next. Wait for the next bus. There will be another one coming pretty darn quick. So don't ever, no, don't chase it. I mean, at that point, look at your IZSS chart. Maybe you'll have an entry there. And, I mean, maybe you won't, but let me see. I've got an IZSS chart that I copied here. Okay. Before I do this, I really should ask about any other questions on the slings. I've never traded futures. Is it like Forex? What platform do you use? Yeah, futures is just like trading Forex. And there's lots of different platforms. I use Ninja just to keep it all simple. But there's any number of them. A lot of people use different ones. Any other questions? Do you get stopped out if two slings back to back? I have a 20 tick stop, so I have a 519 bar. That means if it reverses and goes the other direction, it has to be 19 ticks. So no, I don't usually get stopped out. If that's what I try to do, is to make my stop big enough so that I can withstand getting a second elevator or second sling. I mean, actually an elevator. I try to be able to withstand a complete elevator without getting stopped. And I'm going to show an example. Well, here's one where you've got a sling. Now it's not, because there's not two bars of the same color previous to it. Okay, here is a sling. Okay, and your next bar was a small sling, but I have done so much back testing in my market that I know if I have an 18 tick stop on TF, I'm going to get stopped out. I mean, it happens a lot. In fact, on my KDT, I put one at 18 ticks and one at 20 ticks. And when I get in there, I generally will move my 18 tick take profit or stop, and I'll move it to at least 20, 21. I move it because at 18, I've gotten stopped out so many times. I've found that just in testing my market, which I would highly recommend, go back and back test it, replay, practice, and you'll learn your market. And I have found that I can't do anything less than 20 ticks. It'll go to 19 a lot, and it'll hit it, and then it'll go back in my direction. So I found I lose less by giving it more room. Is there a better time of day you found for this? What are my office hours? I trade from, I don't trade open, I let open settle, but then I trade generally around 9:30 to 11:30 in the morning Eastern time, but I don't trade open. I let it settle first. That's just me, because I'm always 24/7. I'm in the room 24/7, it feels like a lot of times, but no, my trading, I want to trade a couple hours and be done because I'm always scattered in so many directions. So I try not to, I just want to get my trading in and meet my goals for the day, and I'm done. I'm really interested when you go to IZSS to clarify only areas to enter. Okay, the IZSS is more what I would use to clarify if I want to stay in. It doesn't do anything for entry for the slings and elevators and E's. Those are their own entries, their own chart, done. But for example, let's see. Well, no, these would not be a good example because the bars are green way back here. And so, and this is a screenshot, so I can't even see, but you don't, the entry for, this is something that came up in the room, so I want to cover it real quick. The entry for a IZSS is when the bars turn green. You really don't want to get in later than that, although if you would see, for example, if you had your other chart up and you looked and it looks like there could have been an elevator here. You can't tell with the IZ, SS because they're all green. They're showing a green trend. But you really don't want to just hop in any old time. If you do hop in later, stick with a scalp because that's, I mean, your trend started at the beginning when your bars changed. And I'm trying to see a good example. I don't really see a real good one on this. Well, let's look. Let's just go here for an example. The bars are green. The bars are green. This bar turned red. Now, your trend catcher up here already changed. So you want the trend catcher and everything to change on the same bar, if I'm understanding it correctly. And everything else, your chop filter is, well, maybe this is even orange. I think it's red. It's hard to tell. And actually, this looks maybe, yeah, I think it's red. It's really kind of hard to tell, and I have to blow mine up really good to see. But you want your bar to be red. You want your trend catcher to change red. You want all these little things to be red. And your MVP arrow does not have to appear on the same bar, but it does. If it appears within 4 bars of the potential, you've got a nice setup for a trend. And in this case, it's not. Different things change at different times. I might take that for a scalp, but that's not in the rules. So I kind of had a little challenge with Daryl about that the other day. So yeah, I never challenge Daryl on anything. I have the joy of proving him right a little too often. Okay, what I meant is that from Daryl's videos and comments in the forum, you will only enter at green and red eye zones. If there's no green or red eye zone at the deviation level, there's no entry, even though you may get a signal in the bars. Exactly right, Chris. It's exactly right. The bars are not, just because the bars get the right color in the IZSS, it does not mean it's an entry. You have to have everything flip up for you. And sometimes you won't have a lot of entries because to have everything coordinate, that's why that's why I'm teaching this and today, and that's why I do the slings and the elevators, a lot of little scalps. And if you watch them perfectly and don't chase them, don't force a trade, you wait for the right ones, don't take the second and the third, or don't take a sling after an elevator. You know, if you don't take risks, you will find your account profiting huge as long as you follow the rules and don't force your trades. And then this chart, you can turn on your trend catcher alerts, and every time a trend catcher potential or confirmed shows up, you get an alert. So you can be watching for slings and elevators and E's, and then you put these alerts on and it'll alert you, and you just come over, check your chart. Oh, no, everything's not lining up. Okay, next. Okay, do I ever let my 5-10 tick scalp run and collect more ticks if you see a nice trend going? Yes, absolutely, I do. And you have to be careful when the market is too choppy on slings. Absolutely. That is definitely something that you have to be careful of, because yesterday was a good example. It was pretty choppy, and I tend to really, you got to watch. And if you're going, then I kind of will use some other indicators to tell me, well, maybe I don't want to take every single one, and I might watch some indicators. For example, let me see if I have a good example here. On this, well, Friday, this is not Friday, but Friday was really choppy and a tough day. But if it is a choppy day, I'm going to be watching more for the I zones, and I'm going to be taking, and Daryl touches on that on the IZSS. If you're taking a trade off an I zone, that's great. For example, look at this. The settlement is here. It's probably going to oscillate a little bit, but it goes up almost to the top of this I zone. So, it can't go through it. It doesn't. It has low volume here, and it goes to the top of the I zone, so I'm going to look for it to bounce off. Now, settlement's right there, so I'm not going to look for a whole lot of anything. I'm going to be very, very careful about there. But when it comes down below settlement, and then we've got a red E forming, oh my gosh, I love those ones. I mean, we've got a reversal. The trend catcher shows us we had a reversal, so we've got the trend catcher showing a reversal. We've got a red E. I'm going to take that and go down. And one thing I've noticed is a lot of times it'll go down, and after a few bars, if you're right by settlement, it's going to come back up, hit settlement, and go down again. It's just taking out some stops. If you can sit through that, you've got somewhere to go. But if it's real choppy, in fact, when it's real choppy, I will take a lesser profit. But then again, I don't always want to put that much risk out there either. So that's kind of a matter of learning the market. And if you've got a choppy day, learn to spot those choppy days. If you've got bunchy apexes, and there aren't any on this day, but let's see once. This is an actual replay chart that I put up. For example, bunchy apexes. The A and the P are on the next bar. I don't like those. I stay away from those. I mean, in this case, it was an elevator because it went the wrong direction. It didn't go the wrong direction. It closed the opposite direction of the bar before it. And then the next bar came down and it closed in my direction, in the same direction as the trend. But it is also a half a deviation, a minus half deviation. So chances are when you get to a 1 deviation, a half deviation, your settlement, those are your biggest levels. And when you get to those, it's probably going to oscillate. And when I see this, your A is on one bar, your P is on the next bar. This is an elevator, but I'm going to probably stay out of it. Anytime I see the elevator and the apex, it's great because they confirmed each other. The elevator confirms it's probably going to go down. The apex pattern is painting red, it's probably going to go down. But it's also right around the half deviation, the negative half deviation. I'm going to just sit and wait. I don't like when the apexes are, as Marilyn says, bunchy apexes. That equals chop. So I don't like them, not going to mess with them. I will wait until it gives me a clear signal and it gets out of the chop. And will I miss a trade? Yeah, I probably will miss a trade, but I'd rather miss a trade and let a couple trades go by than get caught up in this chop. I mean, up, down, up, down, up, down. It's, I'll pass, thanks. So that's just me. Okay, did I see somebody ask about the dots? I think I saw a question that I put these dots on this chart are the swing highs and swing low. Daryl talks about those in the IZSS, and there's an indicator that just lets you visually see them. It's just a generic indicator from Ninja. It is called Swing right there. It helps me visually see it because I squish my chart sometimes. Is that a gold EMA line? Yes, that's a 50. It's a gold EMA line. It's an apex diagnostic EMA line set to 50. I was noticing that a lot of times that it'll bounce around the 50 EMA line. And if it goes through, and you can kind of see where it did. It came down through the EMA, and it went back up through it. It came down and went back up through, but it's right, settlement's right there too. But I've noticed that when I was just looking at it, I noticed that it will bounce around in EMA a lot, and if it once crosses it, a lot of times I can take a quick scalp. It's just kind of a little extra guide that I use sometimes, not always. I don't know, Daryl does not use them. And I don't very often, but it's just there. What other questions? Any other questions? Did I confuse everybody or make it a little bit clearer? I will put a post in the forum showing the actual entry rules for the slings and elevators. Like, you don't take a sling after an elevator. However, you can take one elevator if you've had one sling. If you have a sling, then an elevator, you can take the sling and the elevator both, because the elevator has more, strength, I guess. It generally is stronger. But if you've had two slings and then an elevator, you do not take it. Only if you've had one sling, then the next one is an elevator, you can take them both. You do not, you don't take any more than that. You can if you want to take a big risk, but there are so many trades. I mean, if you, for example, I do the KDT most of the time, so I have $150 per 15 ticks per pop. I mean, 4 trades, and I've made $600, and I can usually get that a lot of times in 20 minutes. You know, and always, yes, a good point, Dan. On an elevator especially, never enter the elevator until the second bar after it has closed. And here's an example. Right here, you have an elevator. You wait for this bar, and in this case it's the P bar, you wait for that to close, because that could be a reversal. It could go ahead and go on up, and you don't want to guess. You don't want to sit there and think, okay, we got a reversal, I'm going to go up. No, wait and see if you've got a reversal or do you have an elevator. And you wait until this bar closes, and then you get in 1 to 3 ticks after the low of the elevator bar. And what I have noticed with the shadow bars, if there's a bar that's a little lower than the elevator just before it, I go past the low of the lowest bar. If it's the bar before it, the elevator, or the next one, I will wait until the low of whichever one of these is lowest. But there are so many of these setups. I mean, geez, one of these is $150 a day. 4 of them is $600 a day. I mean, it's great, and they work with binaries if you're going at the money. Now, if you're going in the money or if you're going out of the money in binaries, not going to work as well. It's not going to move enough to get your scalp. But I was doing, when I was doing these in binaries, I was doing the Apex E's a lot. And I did them all the time, and I'd go at the money. You know, $40 risk. If I'm selling, I'm going to go in around 60. I'm going to sell for about 60, which is about a $40 risk, and then I'll buy it back around 35, 40, you know, ish, somewhere in there. And that's it moves the fastest, and you've got a little lower risk. If you're going in the money on these, I wouldn't want to do it. You're probably going to lose a little bit more. And the money's move slower, and you don't always have a lot. You don't always have a lot of movement on these. And if you're going at the money, it takes less movement to get your profit. And don't ever, if you're doing binaries, don't ever stay in it expecting it to continue your direction. It may not. That's what scalping's about. It's a quick grab the money and run. The IZSS, that's when everything lines up. That one you might stay in a little longer. Before I went to Vegas, I mentioned I was going to post on the IZSS to clarify something, but I don't remember what it was. Marking charts. Yeah, I do want to. I want to do a post on the IZSS and clarify a few things. The problem that I run into with that is that I went ahead and I watched the videos that Daryl did. I watched them all in order, like you're supposed to do. And there is so much information in there, I really hesitate to give any shortcuts because you really need that information. I mean, it's if you're doing spreads and you watch every single one, it's a bunch of videos. Some of them are 5 minutes. He broke them down, and you don't have to watch them all at once. But they are the most all of them together are approximately 4 hours of videos. Are you worth investing 4 hours of your time for something that's going to make you a lot of money? I mean, these things rock. You may not have a lot of trades with them, but when you do, it's awesome. There's a lot of good knowledge in there. You're so right, Nate. Oh my gosh. I mean, he goes over, people are skipping the indicator part of it. Well, he doesn't just talk about the indicators, he talks about how he uses the indicators with those. Daryl has made a lot of money on the IZSS. And he is talking about, I mean, he gives you everything you need to make it work for you the same as he makes it work for him. So that's kind of why I hesitate to put too much in there on the IZSS, because I want everyone to watch those videos. He walks through how to set up your charts. And there's important little tips that you will learn in there that you may not have known. Like he mentions why we use the 24/7 default template. I mean, I always knew we were supposed to, but I never really knew why. Well, he talks about why in there. I mean, he really tells you everything you need to know. And I would say if you're trading this stuff, if you know, are you in it for a week? Are you just looking for, oh gee, I want to do 5 minutes because they're fast, and you know, well, good luck with that. I mean, 5 minutes can be good, but if you want to learn and trade for a lifetime, oh my gosh, watch every one of those IZSS videos. If you don't trade with IZSS, well, for one thing, I think you're a little nuts, because it works with everything and it catches the trends. And you know, I'm working at getting my brain trained to see all that, which is taking a little bit, because I've been trading these elevators and slings for, gosh, about 6 months or so. And they are a supplement, in my opinion. I mean, they're my bread and butter, because they're consistent every day. They make me money. But I want the trends. I miss the trends when I do those. I always miss the trends when I'm using my slings, my elevators. And I mean, and it drives me crazy. Marilyn will be catching, you know, 50 ticks on a trend, and I just got 15 on my KDT. Oh boy. But that's where the IZSS will help you stay in the trends. It's really, really good. Okay, I'm going to go back up and look at some of these questions. What instruments do I like in the slings and elevators besides my favorite TF? I was doing oil with them, but I've gotten bit in oil a few times. I don't have, excuse me, I don't have Maryland's general overall big picture, and I tend to get on at the wrong bus stops. I don't know what it is, but I'm not real good with Maryland's buses, so I'm not a big CL fan anymore. I mean, if you are following Maryland and you can follow, Leah is a good example. Oh my gosh, she does fabulous with this, and she's fairly new, and I'm, you know, doesn't work that way for me. I need something a little more no-brainer, and just, you see a bar, you go in. So other markets that I like with this, I love DX, I love YM. NQ plays nice with this. I haven't traded NQ a lot, but it does. When I look at it, it's always really nice. And NQ is great with spreads, because right now they are a great market to do spreads in. They're bid-ask and everything. They've got if you're doing spreads, I would recommend doing the NQ with this stuff. They do work. Do you have to join Apex Elite to get all the videos? No, you don't have to join Apex Elite to get the videos. All education is always free. But to use the tools, yes, you have to join Apex Elite. Do I use T210 and TF in addition to your 519? No, I don't use T210 for anything. I use 519 and I use the IZSS 810.5. But 210 might work. I don't know. I just haven't done it. I wish we could do an alert that combines telling us a trend catcher confirmation and the color coordination of these bars, because there are so many alerts in trend catcher. After a while, it's like hearing rainfall. I so agree with you. And we're talking about getting some different alerts in there. And if there's too many alerts with the trend catcher, try putting the MVP alert on. You'll get in a little later, but you can always look and see if when the MVP flips, if it happens to flip on bar 4 from the potential entry, or the if it flips 2 bars after the trend catcher per the latest videos for IZSS. You get in a little late, but it's less alerts, and you tend to get immune to the alerts. So if you find yourself just ignoring them, try the MVP. I haven't done that yet, but I know some people that have, and they've had great luck with it. So that's an option until we get some different alerts in there. I think I got everybody's question. If I have not got your question, go ahead and put it in again because I missed it. Are there any neat things that we can look forward to in Apex indicator systems that Apex is working on? Oh, we're always working on fun stuff. I mean, it's crazy. But yes, there's new stuff coming up. But I mean, through everything that we have been through, I kind of went back to my elevators and slings and okay, here's the biggest advice that I can give anyone. Focus on, if you are a trend trader and you really only want the trends, focus on IZSS. You may get less trades, but when you get a trade and you get your trend, you're going to make a lot of money. You won't need to have a bunch of trades. If you're a trend trader, focus on IZSS. If you are a scalper, I'm a scalper, focus on the elevators and slings and the E's. Don't jump around to a million different things. I mean, whether you're doing spreads, binaries, Forex, futures, whatever you're doing, pick a system that your brain works with and follow it, focus, learn it, know it, own it. And then you can change some little things, like Marilyn, she's doing elevators and slings now also. And she's kind of adding her own. Of course, Marilyn reads the market like none other, and she does this in oil, and oil and TF react a lot alike. And so she does this in TF, but she will do a little different nuances, or I guess she does a little different twist to them sometimes, and she does really well. So that's what I would say. First, just learn the basics, learn the rules, and just get them down so you're seeing them, because you got to train your brain to see the entries. You don't want to chase them. You don't want to force it. You don't want to, if you miss that entry, well, just wait. Another one will come. And I highly would recommend being in the elite room, because people are calling these out now a lot in NQ and TF and some in CL. And if you want to do a different market, and be in the elite room and call them out, there's probably somebody else that would love to see somebody calling out Forex. And you'll have basically partners in there helping you to watch for these setups. And so if you get in there and in the market you're doing is not one that's a favorite in the room, well, get in there and start it to be. I mean, if you're calling out trades, somebody else is probably not necessarily calling out trades, but if you call out setups, then somebody else is probably, they'll jump in and, oh, I'm so glad that somebody else is doing that market. I love that market. And you might have someone else watching for setups with you. It's great to use the buddy system. I mean, the more people you have looking for these setups, then the more trained you're going to become. And that's when I do my best, is when I'm calling out the setups in the room. It keeps me focused. It keeps me on track, because if there's something that, keeps me from taking the stupid trades that, oh, I think it's going to do this. Well, think again, because you don't know what it's going to do. You wait for the setup. You don't ever do what you think it's going to do. You wait until the setup gives you an entry. And I mean, this is just so easy. And the more you post charts with, and people have been doing that a lot. They've been really good about posting charts in the room. And what did I do wrong here? And what they post may be something that you've done, and you're thinking, oh my gosh, well, I took that too. Why did that, you know? Well, because you didn't wait for it to close, or because of this, or yeah, it was valid. It was just one of those that the market turned on you. I mean, that's going to happen. There are losers. It's a fact in trading. You're never going to hit them all. So anyway, any other questions? No, magnet indicator. Okay. We don't have a magnet indicator at this point. It is one of the things that we're working on. So one more example of a sling and an elevator, please. Can you zoom in on it? I certainly can try. Let's see. Okay. I'm not saying it's valid because I'm just looking at an example here. But as you can see, it's coming down, and we've got a trend catcher arrow, the cyan arrow. It puts a little wick up, but it comes down, and that is a sling right there, a trend catcher arrow, but it closes in the same direction. So your entry would be 1 to 3 ticks below the low, because it's going down, so it's below the low of that bar. Now in this one, it's going to be hard to sit through because you got an elevator the next bar, and this is an elevator. It closed the opposite direction. One bar that closed the opposite direction. The next bar, you wait until it closes to make sure it's going to go back in your direction. And you'll see at the half deviation, that's what's causing this chop here. So I tend to wait, and another good example is the A and the P and the E and the X. You can see they're real bunchy chop. I'm going to wait for a little while, and I'll probably miss a trade or two waiting for it, or you can trade through it. And then you're gonna, but it's the fourth sling in the trend. Yeah, I'm not saying that's a valid one at all. I'm just showing an example of one. Good point, Nate. You're right. Here's an example, and here's an example. These are all slings. So you wouldn't have wanted to take this one because it's not the first in the trend. But I was just trying to give an example. Yeah, this would be, providing the trend just started here, and from this way I've got it, you can't tell. But assuming this is the first in the trend, then this would be invalid, this would be invalid, this would be invalid. And here's the first elevator of the trend. Would this be valid? It's the first elevator in the trend, so would it be valid? Trick question. No, it would not, because you had more than one sling before it. You can only have, an elevator has to be either the first sling or elevator in the trend, or it can be the first elevator after the first sling. But you cannot have more slings than one before it. So I'm glad that happened to pop up there, because that's a good example. No, you really wouldn't want it there, and you know, it would have kept you, if you would have sat through all that, eventually you would have gotten, it would have been great. But for scalping, that would have been, how long would that have taken to take your profit? Jeez. You know, 1 o'clock down to nearly 2 o'clock. I'm not going to wait an hour in there, but what's going on with the order flow indicator? It was showing briefly in the view room and then it went away. It will be, they're working on it. There's stuff there, there's kinks that they're working out. And so it's still in the testing phases. It's coming. It's absolutely coming. iZone question, why are the iZones different on the same instrument for 2 different bar settings? Because that's how it works. How's that for an answer? It shows where your bars are different sizes, and it shows where orders were reversed. And so with different bar sizes, it's going to show up different. I mean, it's not just a simple, well, they were reversed, so you gotta, you know, different things go into it. And again, I don't pay attention to all the details of what goes into these indicators. I mean, I test the heck out of these things when we get new toys, and I find they work. Oh, lost sound again. Okay, let me try resetting. Okay, did that help? But when I test these indicators, you know, if I find they work, which of course they always do by the time you get them, but you know, I'm going to run with it. I don't care why they work. I only care that they work. And when I'm testing them, if I find something is kind of odd, you know, well, then it gets changed and we figure out. And so by the time you guys get it, it's complete awesome sauce. Okay, any other questions? Nate says he puts iZone on a 10-minute chart and it shows really nice support and resistance zones. Yeah, it's very possible. We can't possibly test every scenario, so you know there's lots of cool things to watch for and to try out. And I love having Nate in the room because he's actually a really good tester. He's always checking things out, using them in different ways. So glad to have you back around, Nate. He just had a pretty major life move, so moved out of the country, so he was gone for a little while, so glad to have you back. Any other questions? Why invent lemonade? Just use what's worked. This is true. I mean, as a general rule, you know, use it the way it works, the way it's meant to be used. But and I'm bad about that too. I kind of go off and do other things and see if it does this and that. And but you don't have to. That's the beauty of this. Just use it the way it's meant to be used. And with the IZSS, I mean, Daryl has laid that out, and he showed you exactly how and why he uses it the way he does. I mean, and he's done it on the radio. He's done so many live trades with that. I mean, if you're a trend trader, I cannot begin to imagine why you haven't been using that. If you haven't looked at every video in order, skipping none, and setting it up exactly the way he tells you. If you're a trend trader, I can't imagine why you haven't done that. I mean, I don't get it. But because it is a fabulous system, and he's proven it live trades time and time and time again. So, you know, I tend to be a scalper, so that's why I'm showing you these scalp trades, because there's not always a lot of IZSS trades, and everyone's always looking for more trades. Well, if you are a trend trader and you get a big trend, you don't need to have a lot of trades. I mean, if you get one big trend every other day, you should be happy with that. For me, it's hard to sit through, and I tend to do better with lots of little scalping trades. So that's why I'm here doing this. But I'm trying to learn to trend better. I think that's, you know, I like less trades. I don't take a ton of trades. You know, a few of my KDTs and I'm good to go. I'm done. I have had days where I trade for 30 minutes and I'm done for the day. I've hit my goal and I am out of here. I mean, I sit here and I'm in the room and I'm doing things, so I'm almost always around, but then I'm not live trading anymore. So any other questions? I don't see any. Okay, well, I'm going to stop this thing so the recording is not 5 hours long, and this isn't too bad for length. And if you think of any other questions, well, I'm usually around, so come find me, and I will try to get a post on this, and so that you have some rules. But if you want to go back to the rules before I get the post done, go to your trend catcher, watch that over again, because it's all in the trend catcher. It's just we've moved away from trend catcher as a system, so people don't realize it's still all there. And the links are in the forum. So, okay, I will close up with that and have a great weekend. Bye, guys.